All right, guys, what's up? Sean Ames here from Heart of America FPV, and I literally just got home from Daytona. While everything was still fresh, I wanted to go ahead and make a quick recap video. We'll talk about the good stuff first. So first off, MultiGP absolutely knocked this one out of the park. This was by an order of magnitude better than Nats or the champs from years past. I know a lot of people weren't very excited about 2017. 2018 took place in 2019 in Las Vegas, and it was like freezing cold and raining and snowing. That one wasn't the bestest ever. This one had its own weather challenges. We were in Florida, but it was kind of chilly. It was like 60 degrees and a threat of rain kind of sprinkling most of the time. So that wasn't ideal weather-wise, but MultiGP and the team there did a phenomenal job getting the sucker pulled off. Two tracks were really stinking close. I really couldn't tell the two apart except for just the main track was on turf and it looked different than the second track. The venue was phenomenal. Flying on turf is the greatest thing ever. There was some rain, but that turf handles the water so well. Essentially, as long as it wasn't like downpour raining, like you could fly without an issue. There's no puddles, that kind of thing. So that was super cool. The turf itself was great to crash into. Like your quad would literally kind of bounce. You could still break some stuff, but it was just great. And the fact that the lighting was great. Flying at night was just like flying in day, but better. Like it really looked good. Yeah, the event in general was phenomenal. Personally, for me, it was probably the worst I've performed at an event ever. I'm not here to make excuses. I just didn't execute well. I made some really fatal mistakes. Had some things kind of not go my way. Yeah, I didn't have the mental fortitude to get it done ultimately. I don't want to sit here and make a bunch of excuses, but I did want to share like the mistakes I had made. This was a pretty big mistake. So my Tyrannus is in rough shape. Had it for a couple of years. I've modded and added switches, and the RF board in it burnt out at some point. So for probably the last year, I've been using modules. Now I had an FR Sky module. This is actually a jumper 4-in-1 module. My FR Sky module, I had two of them, but the one I was primarily using, it stopped working. The second one I used for Maddie's radio. So when my main one stopped working, I started using this guy about 6 weeks ago. And I'd been having what I thought was like tuning issues with my quad. Now I'm starting to think it was actually RC connection issues. And at champs, I was plagued with failsafes. About half of all my qualifying runs and half of all my practice runs had failsafes. So that was terrifying. At first, I thought it was RX related. Thanks to Tyler Brennan at RaceDayQuads for actually having gear there. I bought a handful of new RXs. It didn't seem to solve the problem. Finally, I had brought Maddie's module from her radio, and for the day of brackets, I put that in there. But drone racing is such a mental thing, and my brain was so gone because of all these issues. I'll talk about some others in a second. That when we got to brackets, finally my failsafes stopped, but my head just wasn't in it. And the first round of brackets, I crashed out. When those races were doing like averaging 30-second laps, my practice heats were 26-second laps. I was absolutely able to compete in that bracket, and I just crashed out the first round. Second round in the losers bracket, I crashed out again. I just didn't have it up here, you know. I've always been someone that relies on my gear working right. When it's not working right, I tend to spiral and make stupid mistakes, and that was absolutely MultiGP Champs 2019 for me. I mean, this might work great for you. For me, I will never use this again in a competitive situation. I might keep it around for whoops and stuff and horizon planes because it's, you know, multi-module. But yeah, getting rid of this, I decided I'm going to switch to the access protocol and just get a new radio, so I've got that confidence in it. The next thing I did was really a fatal flaw. It didn't have to be, but kind of compounded with the other issues. It ended up being an issue. So half of my qualifying runs and practice runs were no good because of failsafes. The other half, I wasn't flying super good right out of the gate, and I decided to fly this battery. Now this was a conscious decision, and I knew it was going to be a risky decision because this is a very small battery. This is the Tattoo R-Line 1.0 1050 50 mAh 6S. So this is a super tiny battery. And this battery was able to get me like a solid 2 minutes. I could fly 2 minutes pretty hard in this battery, but I had two different runs, and I'm gonna play one right up here. This run was actually my qualifying run. Laps 2, 3, and 4 are the laps that ended up being used to seed me. I ended up qualifying 46th, which is just outside of the top 40, which was my goal, to get in that top 40 so that I could compete in the primary bracket, I guess is what I'll call it. And there's a primary bracket, which the winner of that bracket wins the whole thing. Then there's a secondary bracket, which is 41st place through 80th place. I really wanted into that primary bracket for top 40, but unfortunately this run did not get it done for me. If I take that run and instead of starting it at the start finish gate of the second lap, if I go ahead and start it like 5 gates earlier, you'll see that I was able to put up like a 75-second top 3 consecutive, which would have put me there in that top 40. So the issue was, this was more than enough battery. This would get me 4 laps. All I needed was 3 for brackets. All I really needed was 3 for qualifying, but I had 2 different times, just like this time, where had I just gotten that last 5th lap at that pace, I would have ended up qualifying in the primary bracket, no problem. So I'm not going to get rid of these. These are great batteries. I really like flying them. They perform really well. But had I just went with like a 1300, I would have been golden. In general, my gear, other than those 2 issues, held up phenomenally. 533 switchback frame. I think there were 4 or 5 pilots flying that frame, which is Evan Turner's frame. It's now available for pre-order at fly533.com. Link in the description. 4 or 5 pilots out of the top 16 all flying that exact same frame. So that's pretty cool. The fastest 2 guys on the track are both flying Hobbywing ESCs. But yeah, my gear held up great other than the failsafe issues. I was really nervous about having good video. My video was pretty good. Long story short, my goggles are broke. They no longer work with a module. It's not the module. It's like something in the goggle itself. I had to use the ground stations or my own Clearview ground station. On track 1, the video was pretty good, except for channel 6 was kind of wonky, so I tried to avoid that one. Track 2 was decent on the ground stations. It wasn't the cleanest looking video feed, so I did end up using my own ground station over there. I was really concerned about video in general. Video was pretty darn good. Those guys do a good job. So if you didn't follow the event, Evan Turner from Tennessee, I'm a kid that I've been a huge fan of for the longest time. I went and flew with him 2 weekends ago and down there. He ended up winning the whole thing. They changed the age for the DRL contract, so Evan's going to be on DRL in 2020. I'm super pumped for that. It's going to be absolutely incredible to see him and Alex Vanover battle it out. Alex Vanover was clearly like the second fastest guy on that track this weekend. Ended up in 3rd place just because of how Chasey Ace went down. BMS Thomas, who is also incredibly fast, he ended up in 2nd place, and Drobot Racer was in 4th place. So those guys did great. I was super proud of my teammate Amari. Ended up in 8th place. Sean Taylor had a good run inside of the top 16. Silas Propsicle from Southern Illinois, the kid that's always whipping my butt in St. Louis, he was top 16 and had a deep run. Patrick White did phenomenal. It was a great race, a good time. I'm glad I went. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but I definitely learned a lot, and it was all right here. So moving forward, it's sim season. I'm going to go all in with the sims. I am going to get a radio. I'm probably going to try to buy a radio on Black Friday for a good deal, and I'm going to learn to pinch. That's my off-season goal right now, is to learn how to pinch with the radio. Which kind of brings up the fact that I think we have an off season this year. Last year with champs being in February, it never really felt like we had an extended off season that I could experiment with something like pinching. As far as I know, there's nothing on the calendar big until Mayhem late March. So I might try to promote a winter race. I'm working on trying to find the right indoor venue. But yeah, that's it, guys. Hopefully you learned something about maybe where my head was at, where it needs to be at next time. And we will catch you later on Heart of America FPV. Later.